I call to order today's business meeting and Jazzy, would you like to read the lead acknowledgement?
Sure.
Thank you.
Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across differences. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. The Park Rose Board of Education begins this effort by acknowledging that we are gathering on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Chinook, Multnomah, Willamette, Clackamas, Cowlitz, Chilotan, Kalapuya, Malawa, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River in the Portland area. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. We acknowledge them as the past, current, and future caretakers of this land.
Thank you. And of course, I called it to order, but I didn't say the whole thing. So call to order today, November 27th at 6:31. And just want to welcome everyone for attending tonight. Do I hear a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda? Second, did you hear that? Yep. Okay. Discussion, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No nays, no abstentions, so the motion to approve tonight's agenda passes. Great, so looks like we do have a public comment, so I'm gonna just read this over real quick. So oral in-person public comment, a person speaking during the oral public comment portion of the meeting may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs. The board will not hear comments regarding any individual district staff members. Comments or complaints regarding staff must be directed to the superintendent to ensure any association contract governing the employee's rights will be followed. As a reminder to our board members, inquiries or comments from the public will not generally be responded to immediately by the board or board chair and may be referred to the superintendent for a response at a later date. If comments are made about an existing agenda item, the board will save their remarks until the portion of the agenda. And I want to welcome Timur Ender. Did I say that right? I asked you and then I'm like, thank you. So welcome, so you'll be allowed 3 minutes for your comments. And then please begin by stating your name, whether you're a resident of the district, and if you're speaking on behalf of an organization, and then the organization.
Sure, thank you for your time today. My name is Timur Ender. I am not affiliated with the Park Rose School District, and I am speaking on behalf of myself. I think those are all the 2 points.
Okay.
Great. Well, this is friendly. Just I'm here because I'm a candidate for city council, hoping to represent East Portland, District 1. And this is not here to campaign, just mainly to introduce myself, going to all the school districts and neighborhood associations and just saying hi and getting to know people and sharing a little bit about myself. So I'm a parent in 2 kids in the David Douglas School District. And I have, I guess, 2 minor connections to the Park Rose School District. One is for the last 4 years, I've been an attorney pen pal with Marisa Ediza at Park Rose High School through that program, which has been great. And then my second connection is I worked at the city of Portland for about 5 or 6 years and managed some of the infrastructure projects in this area, so sidewalks and things like that. So infrastructure is kind of my passion. I helped launch Bike Share, our city's Bike Share program, and the Fixing Our Streets program, which has funded a lot of the safe routes to school infrastructure in this area. Also worked on the traffic safety action plan, and kind of some of my passions are improving access to parks and community health, mitigating climate change, increasing our tree canopy, and community gardens and urgency in increasing our housing supply. Some of my values are inclusivity, fairness, getting results, and working together to move forward in common cause. So that's a little bit about me, and I will maybe, since I have a little bit more time, just share some kind of apolitical, nonpartisan information about the upcoming election with the change, just so people may not be aware. So there's no primary, so the next city election is gonna be November 5th, and it's gonna be ranked choice voting. And one thing that, you know, as you all community members can help do is, although only 3 people will be elected from this district, it's multi-member districts. You as a voter can actually rank 6 choices, and so the message that we want to continue to spread is rank all 6 choices, so that is your best chance at electing leaders who share your values. So just wanted to put that out there, making sure people rank all 6 choices. And then there's also the small donor elections program, which if you donate to a candidate, that gets matched 9 times. So a $20 contribution to a candidate allows them to get $180 in city funds. So that's one thing you can do if you see candidates you support, and that goes for any district, not just, you don't have to live in your district. So just wanted to share some information about that and share some information about myself. And I'm here if you have any questions, but don't want to take up too much of your time. And thank you for your service. And I also have business cards if y'all would like those as well. So thank you.
Thank you for coming. Sure. Appreciate you coming and talking to us in person.
Yeah.
Right.
Should I leave these with someone or?
You can give it to your chair.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time.
The next thing on the agenda we have is presentations, and the first presentation is Mr. Gallagher discussing athletics.
Right, so I just wanted to come in this year and just talk about where we've been and then the projection for this year for 23-24. So one of the things we started tracking is looking at the growth of the programs. We've been doing this in a variety of different ways, but if you look at the fall and winter sports over the last 4 years, you can see the steady increase in the numbers, basically participation numbers. So over the past 4 years, almost every program has almost doubled, and some have greatly more than doubled. If you look at like football's on a big trend, cheerleading's doubled, and then boys soccer had a big spike this year, and then a huge increase for boys basketball. Jumping over to spring, track and field had a huge increase last year, almost double their numbers to 113. But overall, we're just seeing the projection in sports, even before pre-COVID, the numbers have continued to pre-COVID, the numbers have declined and surpassed those numbers of what happened during the pandemic. So kind of where we were last year, we started boys volleyball as a club. We expanded and we did a one-off game for girls flag football. Last year, we purchased and installed brand new baseball and softball scoreboards. We had star meetings, which is members of the school, so the athletes and leadership would come together and have in-season meetings, so fall, winter, and spring, to get to meet the other people that they would meet on the field, courts, or pitches. We did 3 new awards for students just to showcase the growth and what they've done in the programs for sportsmanship, most improved. Last year, the football program helped start middle school football program. And then we also expanded to buy high jump and pole vault mats, which was great because I think for more than a decade, we haven't hosted a track and field meet, and we were able to host a track and field meet last year. So that was pretty amazing. And then lots of student awards. So those were on there twice. Sorry about that. And then this year, we purchased cheerleading and wrestling mats. Gym scoreboards were just purchased, received, and installed. And last part of that project is installing the shot clocks for the basketball programs. And this year, we got a new and improved mascot. We're gonna run a campaign with that. We reached out and did a donation. Why do you keep muting me? And we got brand new boys volleyball standard. That was 100% donation. This year, we really reached out to the students, and we got 4 teacher assistants who are doing a lot of the work, the social media, posting out on Instagram, and then including some of the slideshows that are in here tonight. Also this year, we're getting feedback from each of the athletes. They give the email, they fill out a survey, evaluation of the head coach. So that's been really interesting feedback. Because they're with the coach more time than anybody, so it's been really insightful to get their perspective. And we're in the process of getting a trainer, so that contract has been signed by Park Rose. And it's now with the trainer's parent company, and we're waiting for them to start the hiring process for that. So since about 3 or 4 years ago, our trainer passed away, we've been without one. So we're excited about the opportunity to provide for the safety and care for the athletes and have a trainer back at Park Rose. Boys volleyball is still an emerging sport, as determined by OSAA. But it looks to expand where it previously was. They were about 2 or 3 competitions and about 2 or 3 tournaments. So this year, there's gonna be a scheduling meeting to expand about their ability to play. So we're just waiting for the next spot of that, which would be a scheduling meeting and seeing what their season looks like. In addition, the school district supported the program and fully funded that position as a paid coaching stipend, which is beneficial because it was just a volunteer sport. We'd have to have paid staff member be there to, be there while the volunteer was working with the kids. This year, we just had them. Coaches award, so coaches do a lot for athletes, so we wanted to recognize them. We did fall awards. We did coach of the year and assistant coach of the year. Damian for boys soccer got coach of the year. And then assistant coach of the year was split between Abigail Heath for cheerleading and Chris Parrott, I guess, for boys soccer. And then next up, girls flag football is coming off the Title 9 requirements for boys volleyball, because we're adding a sport, so we have to do the same for girls sport. So we're following the process for that. We're in the process for getting a uniform donation for that from Nike. And then following that, we will be participating in a club sports scheduling meeting to see if we can do similar to like a soccer or a softball jamboree, where they'll play 2 or 3 different dates, but play 2 or 3 different teams of each one. We're waiting to see what that looks like, but that's the process for that. One other thing I forgot to mention on the boys volleyball side is we did also get a donation for full uniforms for them. So, okay. This is the lookbook that we also track a variety of different informations that are in there. So the number of athletes that are in each of the program, if they go to state, their number of wins and losses, the number of teams, so we can just look at growth and trajectory of the program. I think what's really nice to look at here is the number of awards individual teams receive. So if you look at football, they receive 1 first team, 6 second teams, 4 honorable mentions, and that's across the whole league, as well as girls volleyball. These are the awards that I really like, is the academic all-state, because they're not just athletes, they're academic athletes. We got 1 second team, 3 honorable mentions. Boys soccer got 3 second teams, 4 honorable mentions. Girls soccer also made OSA academic all-state. So you can see there, 1 first team, 1 second team, 2 honorable mentions. And then dance. Dance is interesting to look at, because dance doesn't just compete in the NWAC league. Dance competes 1A through 6A. So one of the things that we put in place is having an NWAC showcase, so that they get the same level of awards that other teams would be. So this is just dance within NWAC. And so in there, we got 3 all league dance. We got all league drill down, 5th place novice, 4th place advanced, and 5th place advanced. Boys cross country just missed out on state by 1 position, and girls cross country didn't have enough athletes in the program to participate in going to state, or we might have had 1 girl go. So this is one thing I wanted to get in front of you. So next year looks to be the start of OSA computation numbers. So when you look at it, it's based upon 9th through 11th grade. I don't expect anyone to be able to track all this information, but you should have it. So again, OSA computates the data 9th through 11th grade. It doesn't include 12th grade. And if you're at the maximum amount of free and reduced lunch, they take 25% off your total ADM. So when we look at it, where we have like a total of about approximately over 1,000 students, it reduces our numbers down based on 9th through 11th grade to a little over 750, and they take 25% off, so we're about 550. So what that number does for us is it compares us against all the other teams in the NWAC 5A league, and they actually calculate us out as a 4A team. Previously, when we had done this, we opted to play up. If we played down at 4A, we would play other schools like Malala, Estacada. I can't remember all the schools, but what we're looking at, if it does happen again, that we would continue to play up to 5A, but I just wanted to bring this to your attention and see if that's the board, if that's the direction that you still wanted to continue, which would be in the same league, Wilsonville, Centennial, Canby. And continue on with Sal, Putnam, Milwaukee. Are there any questions about that one? That's a bigger conversation, but I wanted to get ahead of you so you would know when it's coming. So it wouldn't start happening till the spring.
I guess since you asked, I'm confused. What's the rationale for that reduction, 25% reduction?
They do it across the state. I have feelings about it, that I think what they're basically saying is if students are qualified for free and reduced lunch across the board, they say that we have less access to being competitive against other schools that don't have that higher percentage of free and reduced lunch. But if you go back and you look at the lookbook and then a number of participants and their growth over the last 5 years. I mean, kids at Park Road are really doing a great job about being involved in athletics, and not just one sport, but multiple sports. But also our wins and losses across the board, you know, not just football, but like all the way from football to track and field. We have more wins and losses or more wins than we have losses. And this also includes other programs that aren't as highlighted, like basketball or football. You know, it really includes girls' tennis, swimming, what else is there? Wrestling programs. So I still think that we're very competitive. My personal preference is we'd stay up to 5A. I think that it's a good league. It's not perfect, but I think it's a good fit for who we are. It's challenging that we're not part of PPS or the Mount Hood like we used to be, because the transportation is so much more convenient when you're just driving partway across Portland instead of all the way across to get to anywhere from Hillsborough to Hood River. So, but if we were to like drop down to 4A, we're going even further. We were going over the mountain at least once per week.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. So initially, I think we moved up to 5A. I can't remember what the process was. But the concern was about our students traveling to rural type place at a great distance. The safety issue, things that have not been resolved with those districts where our kids are traveling. So I am adamantly opposed to this. I don't understand the formula, but it sounds like with that measurement, whatever they're doing there, those schools aren't comparable. When I traveled with my daughter, who was a cheerleader, my daughters who played soccer. I mean, those districts, they're not comparable. The size, the resources, we're a very small district, we do a lot with very little. We're going to districts out, you know, an hour, 2 hours away, but there are clearly their resources are way beyond what we have. So that measurement of preschool reduced, I don't understand what that measurement is, but I think in terms of safety and affordability and travel, all of that, and to see the numbers of our students are doing well, I would push back and see if we can stay at 5A.
Yeah.
I don't know what the process is. When we find out.
I would have to spend a little bit more time going to Wilsonville. You know, like last time I went to the first couple of meetings, they said they were gonna keep us at 5A. We were paying attention and they dropped us down to last week. I came and testified.
Yeah,
And
I
then-
think that's fine.
Yeah, and then,
I would say a committee too.
and then petitioned to play up at 5A and it was approved. But it's just one of those things that we have to pay attention to it, but all the reasons that you said is exactly why. Additional travel time, it's further to go. We have to build new relationships with new athletic directors, new schools. And then, you know, participation and distance for parents to go to. So that's where I'm at. I just wanted to share that information with you as far in advance as I could.
We need to protect our kids.
Right.
We need to fight that, so I'm opposed to it. I'm sure Michael agrees too.
Yeah, I agree. You need to stay at 5A, for all the many reasons, and then, and I feel like their whole how they figure out and just because we're a free and reduced lunch school, that just alone is upsetting me, but the thing is that our kids are showing up, we're showing them that our kids are showing up, so our students. And I agree that we shouldn't have to push us to a 4A. That means that, our students are gonna have to miss more class time because it's gonna be further out. The travel time, the cost, all that, so, I'm the same way, so we need to go and speak. I would be more than happy to as well, and I'm sure our student reps would be more than happy to as well. Did you have more to present, or I was gonna ask?
Yeah.
the students?
Well, there's
They
a
have
couple more slides. If you have questions about ADM, feel free.
Any questions, comments?
Not yet.
Sheree has a.
This will change slightly because there's new regulations around CEP. CEP was done with the design that it was at 40%. You had to have 40% poverty, whatever. The new regulation that took effect is now changed it to 25%. So those formulas will change, but they just become effective. So this formula will have a drastic change on that formula because of all the new schools that are going to pick up CEP.
What's the?
I was gonna ask.
Community eligibility program, that's the free and reduced, where 100% of our kids eat free. And that's where they're saying, based on where we are, our free and reduced program is 100% now.
That doesn't make sense. We're not paying districts that are 100%.
I understand that.
It says that they're traveling at a distance to rural communities that are being abused.
I get that.
Physically abused. Not supposed to.
Yeah. When you look at the OSA computation numbers, within all of NWAC, there's only one other school that's in comparison to us, and that's Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Out of everyone else, the rest of them, Wilsonville, Hillsborough, River, they just look dramatically different on paper with this computation. Mhm.
It's nice.
Any questions?
No questions, but yeah, I can confirm that like, there's been things that have happened to our students, I mean, even some of our reps, like there's been stuff that's happened. Because we've like traveled far distances and put ourselves in that kind of situation almost, so, yeah, it seems kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, no, I can't do that. That is traumatizing, like, actually,
Yeah.
that is so traumatizing.
it's definitely expensive data.
Don't talk about.
Okay.
Continue with I know we're, past time, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, continue. It's
so,
good, it's good for us. It's good.
One of the other things that we've been doing the last couple of years is really not just like, focusing on what money that we can get from the district. So we've really changed the focus back into like all programs have the capacity to like fundraise money. This year alone, just in the fall, we've made about $7,000 in banner sales. And then over the 8 years that we've done like a slow buildup with SNAP raise, Park Roads alone has made $99,375. Yeah, so the athletes and the coaches are doing a good part for like, not the stuff that you need to play, but the additional stuff, warm-ups, extra stuff that do it, they've been raising the funds for it. So it's just really impressive to see that the fundraising's been really successful. And then we think it's really important that OSAA does hear from us, so we've made a big push that every year. This is the second year that it's been around, so we have Nguyen, who's our OSAA Student Advisory Council. She was chosen, and just to clarify on this one, that not every school within Oregon has a student on the Student Advisory Council. It's a select committee. Last year was about 25 to 30. So she is one of 25 to 30 across the street, across the state, but she is represented in Park Roads. So it's cool that we would, 2 years in a row, got another person on it. So this is just one of those things, like, I know everyone's really excited to hear me speak, but if you click on it, the most important thing is that you're gonna see the kids and the coaches at their events, having fun, enjoying themselves and being successful. So you should have all access to this and you can go through it.
What did he come to here?
Can we go back to the slides?
No, I mean, this is what it's here for, if they want to see that. And then I should also mention that these are all student photos. Yeah. All these photos come from the students. Yeah. It's 32.
Barbie faces.
Great.
And then that's really all I have. We try to put all our stuff out on the Instagram page, so. If you're not following us on Park Rose Athletics, please do so. It's the primary place where I try to share everything out. I'm trying to catch up with We Are Park Rose, so.
Thank you. Does, Isaiah, Christian, Tina, Sarah, and Laurie, do you have any?
I have a question, why don't we have a highlight for 24? Oh,
Yeah, oh, for the senior photos,
yeah.
I'm gonna talk to you for that. We have another person who helps us who does all those. We need access to the stuff from Melissa, so I'll look on it. I noticed that too on senior night. There'll be something else being posted today, so, yeah, I noticed that too.
Elizabeth, any questions?
Yeah, I guess I can make a general question, maybe for you, Mr. Gallagher, but maybe also for the students. Last year, our student representatives talked to us quite a bit, and in fact, one of our board goals was around the racial harassment and abuse that our students were experiencing at Oakland. And so I'm just curious, I know, even by this time, it's like, I know it's early in the year kind of, but by this, there have been a lot of things. So I'm just curious, how is it going this year? And also, how are students in terms of feeling supported? Last year, we tried to put in a process for students to be able to, you know, get support when those things happen from within Park Rose, even if we're not getting good response from the host school or their community. So just.
It's been good this year. Well, from volleyball season, it was good. It's not really, I would say like when it gets bad during basketball, like that's like the main sport when it gets bad. Cause like there was a few incidents last year, but
Last year volleyball, the river.
There was a couple of.
yeah. It's
No incident.
And then what about, and so how's the river this year?
we were cool. We
There
still
was
got,
something that happened at camp.
yeah, it was refs. It was the racist refs, but it was the officials, and then they had parents line judging, so that was that. They had parents who can be line judge, which should have been.
This season, the officials ran out of line, they ran out of officials for line judges, and so it's a big issue because parents were line judging their home things.
So. But yeah, during volleyball this year, it was good. Nothing happened. Yeah.
Soccer went pretty smoothly and years. Only one time with the rep.
I think students are definitely clear that if there is an event that happens, that Park Rose definitely is a safe place to kind of have their voice be heard in that kind of way. I know that usually it's not like going to like the adult isn't the first thing that happens, it's usually people consult with like their teammates or whatever, and then that usually goes to like that next step, but. As of from what I've heard, it's been relatively calm this year, but.
I wanted to ask about the maps. I know whenever my daughter was a cheerleader, that was a huge thing on the other side, the maps were enough for the whole squad.
Yeah, so. Going through being in this position, it's like a learning process, like we had that. But you need a certain number and size and makeup, and so now cheerleading has the full size that they need for tumbling and routines. So it's like equivalent to like a dance tarp, like you need a certain size and everything like that. And then they have a full setup for it, it's actually in the commons, and so they've been using it.
So you mentioned boys volleyball. I'm curious with this one gym, how are you going to practice?
Well, we're gonna pray for a lot of sun and a warm spring to start. So it's realistically the biggest problem is we have one gym. It's Oregon, so it rains a lot. And then we have grass fields. So we don't have like the perfect combination. But I think everyone sees like the big pictures to support all athletes. And what's really come out of it is like everybody has to give a little bit. So boys volleyball won't be permanently assigned to the gym like Monday through Friday, 4 to 6:30. We'll have to provide some time for baseball, softball, tennis. And all the coaches have like really changed the way that they look at their season. It doesn't really start on tryout day. It starts, after the 6 weeks are over to protect the winter sport. As soon as that's over with, all the spring sports will start working with the athletes and get going. And so that's gonna be a variety of stuff from weight training, cardiovascular, being inventive of the spaces and the activities and routines that they do. Volleyball athletes, regardless of boys or girls, can practice serving in the commons, they can practice serving in A region, B region. They can do it outside. It's not always the perfect environment, but people understand that the priority is to get the kids into the program, get them engaged, get them attached to it, and start building the skills of where we can. And we see it across the board. Every program's doing it. It's just the problem with spring, still the one gym, grass fields, and a lot of rain.
And so much this. I just one other question about the banner sales. I know you mentioned last year how we have access plan for trying to disperse that equally among teams. And those banner sales, we explain how that's shared. Is that like a pot that they pull?
So it's up to the coaches and athletes. Every year fundraisers have to be approved by the principal. So I've gone with Ms. O'Shea and then reapproved snap raise and the banner sales again. And so this year at the fall coaches meeting and the winter coaches meeting, we've given them like a packet of the banner sales. And so each program based upon their needs, either, can use, I also don't limit them, other programs doing other fundraisers. So some people are doing snap raise, I think, I checked today, boys basketballs. I think $2,000 to $5,000 somewhere in there already in a couple days. Dance has been really pushing banner sales for a trip that they're gonna take the teams to, but when you sell a banner, it's between $300 to $700. And the cost of the banner is $65, and they can also reuse the banner every year, and if you use it a second time, you keep the full $300 of profits, but it goes directly to the ASB account for the team to use based upon their needs.
Well, I want to thank you for the improvements and seeing the participation and seeing the new uniforms, and that's a prime thing for our kids to have resources and look good on the field and have equipment they can play and be around in communities very full of the same friends.
Yeah, and we've done a variety of other stuff like the warm-ups and stuff like that too, so like the kids feel comfortable at their school pride. One of the things you just mentioned about the issues of, what's happening at other schools. Another thing that we've done is like with Janisha at the middle school. So we have more administrators assigned to more athletic competitions. So there's more of a presence there. I think that we saw a big push about this issue about treatment and harassment and equity across the state. So two things that's happened is I volunteered to be on the OSA Equity Council. And then we're pushing OSA to get that started, that hasn't happened yet. So because that hasn't happened, I put myself on the Oregon Athletic Directors Conference, and then I'm on another one to continue to push, use that council to get OSA to get started. And then again, like having New Wayne to be a student representative of it, but also like last year across the state. We saw a big change in where schools' focus was. It wasn't just so much about schools and participation in wins and losses. We did really see a reawakening of understanding the bigger picture and equity and how it impacts athletes. And we did see a huge turnover, even within our conference of athletic directors, that weren't really able to mirror that change. So we do see that school districts across the board are following us in the lead and making sure that all athletics are safe for kids, whether they're at a home event or away.
It sounds like we need to work with officials too.
That's always, it's getting so, I think I'll use the word interesting, that the names of officials aren't even released anymore when they're assigned for competitions. It's referee 1, referee 2. So, yeah, they've even like the state playoff games, their names weren't even drafted over the intercom.
Really?
One thing I just wanted to ask on the presentation was, when you gave all the sport, the teams.
Yeah.
I
This one.
didn't see cheer on there.
So because cheer hadn't gone yet, and so they just had theirs, well, they're supposed to have theirs this weekend, but we're still. So dance is an activity.
Yeah.
So this is like semantics, but dance is an activity, so historically, they haven't been receiving league awards. So me and Hillsborough really pushed to include dance in this, and that was approved last month, and Lockwood supported. So the next part is we're going on cheer, we're trying to get that supported as a cheer showcase. And so once that's approved, they would get their awards.
Okay.
So that's where we're at in the process with it, because we'll follow the exact same format that dance does. So that athletes get recognized with the individual awards that they deserve.
Just wanted to make sure that we're
Yeah.
including everyone. And I just wanna also just say thank you to the people that, whoever's been doing donations of uniforms and, for the boys volleyball. I'm excited that OSAA passed that as well, and then also that we're keeping in line and making sure that, access is for everyone, and that we're gonna have girls, flag football team.
Yep, that's next.
And so last year I was able to attend when they played against each other, so that was fun. And so, yeah, thank you for all the work and excited that the program's well.
Yeah, the banner sales PowerPoint will be on Instagram sometime next week. Teacher assistants are working on it, they started today.
And it sounds like there's other stuff that needs to be updated. Get it up to date. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is PFA monthly report.
Hello, everybody. Oh, gosh. A ton. For our neighbors, we're happy that it's like he's settled. Almost, I think they reached the historic. Yeah, PPS, but I think the longest teacher strike in Oregon was 15 days. And that was Eugene in 1978. So I don't know if Portland Public, did they get to 15? Well, they have like school day, school specific days, like they were out. 11 specific, so they were close, they were close on them, so, yeah, it'll be I know there'll be some members who have been juggling students and then their own kids And sometimes in the same room. Between all that kind of stuff, to try to make that work, so. I think best of wishes with all that going forward on there, and as always, I feel like a broken record sometimes. But it makes me appreciate the relationship that we have with not only the district, but honestly, let's talk about the board, right? There's some other boards that are other boards, and you are not those other boards, you are our board. Thank you for that. I think the only thing else I could jump onto right now, because I think it's just, the holiday season and everybody's kind of November kind of trying to get through it. But I will say, I'm not feeling the same level of, I think, how it was the last couple of years coming out of the pandemic. I would say though, and again, to reiterate, especially because the discussion is gonna happen today, is I think we're very much, PFA is very much around wanting to support the local option to be able to have that forward. And I think we see that in kind of some of the struggles that we're facing, especially I would say even at the elementary level. And I think, I mean, I looked to the stuff that was put out as part of that information stuff the first time we gave it a shot, and I'm looking at that bullet list of all the stuff, and I'm like, oh boy, right? Like, I think, again, one of the top things that my members said that would specifically make their job doable was having classified people there, like that was part of, it wasn't so much this idea like, we need more teachers, or we need more money, or it's like, no, we need more people that care, that are there. I mean, obviously, I think class size comes from this too, we're being able to maintain class size. Generally, you can do a Sacramento, you're gonna make that work. And then just sometimes our disparities between just numbers at our buildings, the elementaries can kind of wildly vary sometimes, and I don't think that's a budget issue, I'm not sure how that works, I mean, that's like district lines and all those kinds of other things, about like where, who goes where and how it functions. But no, I think really the local option to be able to get more people, more bodies doing that work. And honestly, I would say, even though I work at the high school, I would say probably leaning heavy at the elementary level. I just think, not that I'm against CTE, we don't have options like that. I just think about, I mean, I teach seniors. So by the time I have them, I only have so much time to try to do anything in regards to intervene on those things. And you see the legacy of the differences in the education experience by the time you get to me. And so, I mean, I was in a very selfish way, as an educator who teaches seniors, like, I want that support when it's so critical to build as they move through the grades. And then by the time I have them as seniors, like, I'm seeing that, like, I will wait that 15 years, like, I want to see like that element part of it, and I think there's a need for that. That's just because we're seeing, there's just so much, I think, coming out of, we had talked about from the state perspective, some of the lack of funding and disruptive learning and all that big expo that was going on, and like literally that came out. And then everything shut down for like 2 years. And like none of that was ever like pushed from the state, more funding, more addressing. Michael's big thing about like actually having like variable numbers depending on student need and not just a flat rate. I think all that comes into account, and then all of it just went under the rug because we were doing and then we came back, and now we're dealing with the exacerbation of that event with the students that were having those kinds of needs and those kind of concerns. So it's just, yeah, I feel like there's need to support at the youngest level, the earliest level. So that would be our endorsement. We would want to do that. And Elizabeth, this one's for you. I'm hoping that the so close loss of the last time whips some people up into being like, we were this close and we didn't get it. We need to get out and do it this time. We need to get out, we need to get bodies, we need to get into the neighborhoods and knock it on doors and not be like, oh, yeah, we're gonna, it'll be good, it'll be good. It wasn't good. It didn't happen.
And maybe there's more energy, like you were saying, that you're not experiencing the same fatigue. Is that a good word?
Yeah, I would say
No.
so. I mean, obviously it varies on who you're talking to. But I'm hoping that at least there's. It was a weird time. It was a weird time the first time we were trying to do it. I think regardless of what we do, I think having a bigger buildup, I think really trying to put a lot of momentum behind it. I think that would help in that regard. But yeah, we're saying like. Not that we're against capital bond, like, I feel like we don't want improvements there too. It's kind of like your favorite food, and then maybe like your second food, right? Like, I want the favorite food. I'm not gonna say it, okay, so, that would be the rest of my report, I think. That's every question.
Anyone have any questions? Elizabeth? Sonia?
I just have some comments. I just appreciate you, that. So, I think one thing I'll say is that I remember going to a conference a couple of years ago. It was a bond balance, I'm gonna say it wrong, the NSBA thing about different types of bond campaigns and things. I brought resources back, and the one thing I kept reflecting on was that it really has to be motivated by, it has to be centered in community, has to be powered by people. So the board, we approve whatever we decide to do, with, with the guidance of our admin team, say, okay, we want to go up for a bond, or we want to go up for a levy, but, we can't steer that work, there's 5 of us on the board, it has to be moved by people, it has to be community centered, it has to be people who are in the weeds or in the classroom saying, I'm advocating for this, this is why our community needs to stand up. So we need to see people, we need to see people with their shoes on, with signs out there, talking about the message. The 5 of us can't do it alone. It's not supposed to be on board action. Maybe the board, we vote on it, but it's not a board movement. The community do that. So, and people who are being disproportionately impacted by those needs, inequities need to be on the front line saying, this is why we're advocating for. We want what's best for our kids. Look at our numbers, look what's happening in our classrooms. This is what we want. These are your kids. We want to support them. We need support and vote for us. So we need boots on the ground. We need it organized. We need money behind it. We need people behind it. Because, and the thing is, you never have enough time. I mean, we have less than a year. You need more than a year to really do it right. So we're always like, we're playing quarterback and doing it at the last minute. We make a decision for the end of the year, we're still going behind. We need to get organized and do it. And it needs to be measured response, and it needs to be affordable because we don't have a lot of resources, right? So we're gonna have some conversations about it, but the campaigns are successful, they're organized, and they're full of volunteers are excited and passionate about it, and can speak from their experience about it, and they get their community motivated to do what's best for their kids. And I remember being out there canvassing, it was me and Elizabeth, like a couple weeks before the election, it's like, and I was like, why are we
In the
out here?
rain.
There's only 2 of us, we did like 4 streets, I think, by ourselves, and
Parker's
that's not gonna get it done. Well, we need people out there. So, that's all I'm saying.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, because the same thing,
I'll
like
be out there, but I can be
helping with the campaign itself, it's like, I don't know, you're between work, trying to figure printing and.
I got 1,000 plans.
Exactly.
I have work signs, we don't need the
So-
signs, we got signs. What's next? We need flyers, we need people.
Questions, comments?
No question or comment, I think, just reiterating what Sonia just said, I think it's really the people power that really gets out there. And it gets the message across. I think 400 votes was heartbreaking, but I think if we have more people and more of a runway, I think we can be able to get that. Because our kids need it, we deliver proof every day in schools, from whether it's the local option or the capital bond. Our students need and deserve that the opportunity to have a better education than having.
We appreciate you, yeah, we love a partnership, that's for sure. And I tell everybody all the time, like, we have a great partnership. And it's something that when you go to the conferences, you hear a lot about. You know, the board does not have a great partnership, and I'm like, well, thankfully we do, and it's something that I love talking about and all the great things that we're doing here in our little district, but small but mighty district. Yep, so it's, yeah, the message is really, it's, we're gonna need the people to be out there and help us push this forward, whatever we decide and vote on.
Get them signed in my garage, please.
And maybe the final comment, I'm sure, I don't know numbers at all, but I'm sure there were a lot of Parkrose teachers who are parents who were really impacted by what happened in our neighboring district. So just my gratitude to those teachers and classified staff who had to really stretch for childcare and make, you know, last minute adjustments and stressful, it's really stressful. So thank you to everyone for sticking with us, sticking with Parkrose in the midst of that, all that upheaval. So.
It was nice, and we appreciated Michael's, options too. And the Centennials was like, figure it out. So we were like, oh, well, thank you, Michael, for the flexibility, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you, Zach. I don't know if we have a ONTA monthly.
No, I don't see anyone.
Yes, Brad. The next thing on the agenda, we have our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda? Okay. Any discussion?
Just a note that one of the legislature is busy and we are meeting. Okay. That was a lot to review, but it was good updates.
I don't, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. No, any abstentions? Okay, so the motion to approve tonight's consent agenda passes with 2 votes. 3 of votes, sorry. I'm thinking about approving. Maybe I need to copy. All right. And then one thing, again, for the consent agenda, do we need to go through each? No, right, we're approving.
Yeah, we vote on them in a block,
Okay.
so, yeah.
All right, and the next thing we have is a reading of public comments. Entering.
Oops, no, we're on to department reports.
Oh, no. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
You know what, I don't think I updated your laminated version.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to get used to it. Department reports, here we go.
Well, that's a change, we moved them earlier, so.
Yes, we did,
That was
we
nice
did,
to see.
yeah.
That was great.
That's why I was
Yeah.
like, wait, we did make a change to the agenda. Went here from the beginning.
Okay, last meeting, we talked about financials for the board and wanting to know where you were. And the attachment, I think she's now attached the October financials for the board, where your budget is, what you have left, and so forth. So what I did after that, there was a kind of understanding. I put together basically since I arrived, since 2015-16 till now, and analyzing the budget, where your spending was, and in relation to your budget. So if you can look at that, there's not been a whole lot of change in the overall budget in the time, except for the things that we took out in the very beginning, which was audit services, right? We took out legal services. Those things didn't need to be in the board's budget. So those were taken out and they're basically in my budget or just with the wide budget now. And that's where we spend those things. And we had some insurance that we had in there at that time. So all those things have now been taken out. So basically the things that are in the budget are, and haven't changed really much at all, maybe $1,000 here or $1,000 there, one place or the other. You'll see last year, in relation to what we spent, we actually overspent the budget by about $2,100. It says $29,000, but a lot of that overspending was in relation to those things that was funds that we spent on putting the levy together, right? And then for the other following years, you'll see that we have left money on, except for in 17-18, we were $579 overspent. And the other years we had money left on the table. So one of the questions was, what do we have? And I kind of sound really loud right now because I still can't hear on my right ear, so I'm sorry. But I kind of feel an echo, so if it kind of sounds funny. But things that are still outstanding that we have to think about, the self-evaluation. The convention that you guys have got to go to. Student rep pay, based on what we agreed to. Retiree recognition. And I did that based on the number of people. And then I put board stipends, which would be $30,000. And we got the invoice for elections. It's in the process, but it's not part of this financials, okay? So we have, thank you, that was very nice of you. But we have the invoice coming. But we then have the classified and the certified appreciation. So if you add up that right now, based on the encumbrances that we have, which is the $4,000, basically we have some encumbrances outstanding. In October was $1,080, but when I ran these financial statements, we had included more encumbrances and they were in relation to the OSBA. Or, so those were future expenses that we already had out there. So, so basically the OSBA convention stuff, that Andrea already put in some POs for those that you didn't see in the October, but you'll see is the 4,000 number up there. So how you want to spend that, we have about $9,400 left. Now, if Brenda gets a scholarship, you'll have less money to spend, and you won't have to spend as much money. So we'll have to make the decisions, and we always know that the board spends the money for certified and classified appreciation. So, but we do get a $1,500 basically stipend or contribution that could offset that. But if you have to pay the other things, and the cost of the staff, there probably will be, we will overspend just on those two items with the cost of staff, the students, and then the cost of the certified and the classified appreciation, and then with the board self-evaluation. So keeping those things in mind, we're running pretty skippy on having any money left at the end of the year if you chose to do other things. Now, when I took the student expenses, when I initially did this evaluation, the very top line is the additional salaries and the benefits. That is only 2 months of salary. So I basically, what I did was analyze that and say, divide that by 2 and then times it by 8, because I have 8 months left. Okay, so that's why when my analysis shows $7,000, that's why, now, it may not be $7,000 because not every student may come every month, right? But depending on how that is, and some of the money that is out because students came to some of the earlier events during the year. So it may not be, it may only be 5,000, but still, if the 5,000 and the appreciation, those two are gonna take up a big portion and whatever you got left. So we just have to be mindful of how we want to do that going forward. I hope this answered some of your questions that you guys had when we had the last meeting, when we talked, and some of the trends of how you spent money in the past, and where we've spent some of the money. Anybody have any questions?
My one question is, the elections cost, what's that for?
So every time that we have an elections is based on how many people are in the ballot and whether we have things on the ballot or not. Right, we get charged because we're in the county. So now, we had a very long, if we're on the ballot, we get a bigger charge. But unfortunately, by law, it's based by the population and the census that you have. And I cannot explain the whole formula, don't ask me to, and I'm not gonna lie. But I know that it's complicated, and regardless of whether I have anything on the ballot or not, I get charged an expense. And I've called them and asked, this, what if I don't have anything on the ballot, nothing in my area, why am I getting charged? And it's how the election office and the law has set it up to ensure that they cover their gratuitous, the budget.
Okay. Students. questions?
Yeah, a couple questions. Okay, so you answered my question about the additional salary and benefits. Those are our students' representative stipends. So a note for budgeting for the spring, we should have that in the budget, like it shouldn't just be zero.
Right,
And maybe we can rename it instead of additional, we can put like student. Give it a little bit more of a descriptive name, so that I'm just throwing it, because you need more work to do, so I'm throwing that.
the account code that we have, it's called additional salary and benefit.
Oh, okay, that's what it
Okay,
says.
and we just put Board of Education, because typically Board of Education doesn't have any salary.
Yeah, got it.
So we just put it Board of additional salaries and benefits.
But yeah, so let's set a budget for that, and then we consistently don't seem to have used negotiation services. I'm gonna guess that is if we needed some sort of.
When
legal
Karen was
advice.
here, Karen was the last one that we used negotiation services. But if you get into a negotiation, similar like PPS and Centennial and David Douglas have, they have an attorney that allows them, once they get to arbitration, you pretty much have to put it in somebody else's hands, and that's an attorney's. We in this district haven't brought the attorneys the last 3 times because we feel that we get better relationships by let's talk it out, because sometimes having the attorney there tends to be a barrier.
So the amount went up, is that just because the market rate went up and?
Yes.
Yeah.
But if we don't use it, some of the things have to be reallocated
Yeah.
here. And I haven't really adjusted, other than this year, I add a little small increase to every line item. I agree with you, maybe in the supplemental budget, we can tweak it only and put it like 4 or 5 lines, so it makes it a little bit more simple.
Yeah, I guess my only thought on it is that I feel like as a board, we're very committed to students and to the current. I mean, it might change in the future, but we're committed to making sure that our student representatives feel supported. So having that, have money allocated to it, it feels like it's important.
Yes.
To me as a practice, so that you know that that's something we're on the hook for and we are making sure that that's in the budget. Otherwise, I think everything else makes sense to me. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was, what is the estimate for students that based on the number of hours per student have content?
So the estimate that I have, the current year to date, the 1795, that was for 2 months. The students basically will attend for a 10-month period for the academic year, for 10 academic months. So I basically, since we don't get paid once a month, it was a standard back. That's all it was.
Doesn't it count their planning period as well? Is that? Yeah, okay. All right, just want to make sure. No other questions, me, take me long to process first.
And if you have other questions, please give me a call, I'm glad to answer.
I don't have any questions.
All right, if there's nothing for that agenda item, the next one we have is the capital versus local option fund.
So what was in the agenda, I actually have made some adjustments. So each one of you, I handed out and printed out some stuff for you so you can see it as I talk about the stuff that Andrea is going to click in between the slides. So the first slide that I'm showing you are basically concerns and thoughts around levy versus bond and where we stand and what we have to think about in the budget or things that we already know that are triggers. One, in 24-25, we know we have 1.6 million already a shortfall because they're being paid out of ESSER, which is 8.6 FTE. And those FTE is me, Mary, technology director, all the assistant principals, Brooke, and one more. And Susan, the front desk. So we either decide how we're going to reallocate those funds, and because those are not positions that you can do without most of the time. So we have to figure out where the funding's coming from. Right, and we as a cabinet made the decision not to put teaching staff there because when I wanted to do ESSER dollars, we didn't want to put things that are one-time cuts or anything like that. So, and when we wanted to negotiate in negotiations, it kind of looks kind of messy when you have people all over the place. Correct, Zach? He's not answering. But it's easier for people to see it when you have funding sources that are similar. So if it was directors or something like that, it was easier for us to move things around. So the second items are things that we currently don't have a revenue source for. Textbook funds. Okay, in this district for years and years, it's been, if I can find something and it's underneath a cushion, let's hope I can find something. Textbook funds, technology funds, and the retirement funds, those are all things that continue to happen. I have to replace technology, I have curriculum textbooks updates, and I have retirements that we have guaranteed contract, but we don't have a guaranteed funding source. So those are the things that we as a district have to think, where is that going to come from in the future? Some of the things when I was at PPS, we had similar situations, and what we decided to do is say, 0.001 of the property taxes, which dedicated to each one of those funds. So it was guaranteed every year that they would have a funding source. So you didn't have to rob from another department, right? So there was a decision by the board that said, I think I had 5 funds that were dedicated in PPS, that we made decisions that every year I estimated what revenue was, and that's where I took the revenue and put them into another fund. So I didn't say, I'm cutting that department budget to fund this technology. So it made it very easy and simplistic, and it kind of restricted the ability for us to manipulate some of that stuff in the future to guarantee that we would have more technology. Textbook curriculum, now that's got automated and everything's electronic, it's more expensive. But it's the renewal's a little bit more frequent, and I can't continue to try to come up with the money. The current curriculum update that we're doing in textbook is being paid out of ESSER 3. Okay, so the next one after this, unless I get something that fall out of a tree, I don't have funding for it. Okay, textbooks right now has $124 in its fund balance. $124.60. The LEAP program funding for teachers and the kids. But if the kids want to go to extra programs and we want to send them because that's their function, we want to teach them how to do things differently. And we don't have those additional funds, right? And the only thing that LEAP has been living off of is little small grants here and there to allow those program managers to send them to places to buy them the movie tickets or to send something. So we need to think about that. The homeless program is also in the same situation. We're required to do homeless, right? And years ago, the homeless FTE was paid out of Title I, but right now, going forward, Title I only has a 0.1 FTE for homeless. It can't afford it because it can't afford the FTE that's in there now. Okay, because the funding in Title I is going down. So we have to come up with some funding sources for those kind of things. Okay, we're going to have insurance increases, not our insurance for health, but our insurance for liability, which we pay about $500,000 this year. It's going to go up 15 to 17%. We've already been advised. It went up 18% last year. They're going up another 15 to 17%. PERS rate already been notified. We went up a little about a 1.5% on PERS. They've already notified us that the PERS rate are going up about 3.5%. Even the districts that have side accounts are going up higher than the districts that don't have a side account. Which is an oxymoron to the pension system, but that's just what they're saying. So with our $20 million in salaries, that's a $1 million increase. Just in PERS. And with Ryan's comments, I'm so glad we have the increase in athletics, but there's no increase in money. And this is something I said to Andre, to Michael, to Ryan. Love the increase, but where's the money coming from? Okay, and the increase in the transportation trips, I don't have drivers, so they're spending more on outside sourcing for transportation, which they don't have the funding for. So it's fine, these are some of the things that are on my head trying to go, where do I find money for those? And these are things, all these things here, except for the textbook, technology and retirement, are general fund expenses. And typically in the past, the only way I've been able to supply technology, textbooks and retirement fund is fund transfers from Thompson or the general fund. I don't have a huge amount of cash. So thinking of those kind of things. Then item number 3, when I was analyzing, one thing that we talked about last meeting was we wanted to do $1 per thousand, and that would bring us anywhere between $2 to $3 million, right? And if you add up just the line item of things that I have above, it's above $3 million. Okay, so we have to think, knowing going into 24-25, similar like Salem and doing, similar as other school districts are doing right now, we're gonna have cuts. We know that, but where would they be? I don't know. Can we restructure something? We don't know. So do we go out for a capital bond or do we do a local option? And I have more things on the capital bond to analyze, one or the other. The one thing I got last week was analyzing the capital bond that I refinanced, and I refinanced it keeping $1.25 in 2019. As of last Thursday or last Wednesday, it's now down to 72 cents per thousand. That's a 53-cent decrease in 3 years, guys. That's phenomenal, right? Now, in 2028, I'm going to be paying off $15 million of that. That's item number 5. And when I pay off the $15 million, that's going to take the per thousand down to 25 cents to 30 cents per thousand from 2028 to 2036. That's all we would have to pay off. That's huge for this district. So as you analyze, when do you do a bond? Do you wait until I pay the $15 million off, which is in 2028? That's a long time. Or do you do it now? So thinking of those things, because I can't pay off the $15 million early, because the only way I can pay the $15 million off is because I assess taxes every year, and then I put it in what they call a sinking fund, and in 5 years, I get to pay it off. So I get to, in 5 years, collect those taxes, and I put them in what they call a sinking fund, and then I can pay them off. Okay? So those are things to think about on the financial side. So now let's talk about looking at the capital. So the next tab is the long-range facility plan. And you won't be able to see it this way as much, but pick up your sheet and pick up basically the second page, right? And in that, I took that 150-page document and made it one document. Okay? And basically in that, for each one of the schools, and in the long-range facility plan, they said 4 things. A, I absolutely need it, which means things are mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. I absolutely, because some of our schools, they're all outdated except for the middle school. So all of them need drastic changes in those schools to be up to date. B, planning scope adds, classroom adds, add more classrooms. Play structure changes, more playground spaces, drop-off areas, redesign them and restructuring, parking lot, gyms, add corridors, new canopies in the courtyards, athletics areas, CTE. These are adds. Now, that is of the biggest dollars, it is 48% of the overall total, right? Then you see site upgrades, right? Well, the site upgrades aren't as much money, and majority of it is the high school. And those site upgrades have to deal mostly with athletics. Okay? Because that's all those big improvements that we need at the high school to enhance that program to be more functional. Now, there's two others, one's at a parking lot, obviously at Prescott, because we need a parking lot, right? And the other one is Russell. And those are 200,000 and 250,000. So those aren't much for them or whatever they are. Then the last category is D, soft costs. And we all know that's basically architects, engineers, all those things we don't think about when you do building, right? That's the overhead charges. So overall, when you looked at that 100 and some odd page document, and I didn't include anything associated with rentals. Before, basically in February of 22, this was $101 million. Our last bond was $63 million. Knowing that things, cost of living has changed and cost of doing business, I took a 6% increase, it's 107 million, okay? Now, there's a lot of things in that planning scope and add and things, right? That you could pick and choose. But the first line item, which is A, you can't pick and choose those, right? And a lot of the things that are in the B were some of the things that we're looking for, ADA ramps, kitchens. Elementary kitchens are still dated in the 1960s. The burners that the kitchen stuff goes on are still in the 1960s. Some of you still remember the elementary school going through the feed line. Those things are still the same. Okay? So thinking of those things and how we would want to do that and how we would go around the bond. Now, bond, if we did $100 million, I think that would be great, right? Obviously, you wouldn't do all 100 million over the first 3 years. You would have to stagger it out over I would draw, let's say 30 million for this year, 30 million, right? Because if I threw all $100 million down the first year, that means I have 3 years to do everything on that list, right? So one thing about capital bonds, you can do a capital bond, but you don't have to draw all the money at one time, right? So I can say this year, I want to do $20 million because I know I'm actually going to spend 20 million. And then I can stagger it over a 5-year period, knowing how I'm going to spend money and how the phase of a project goes. But when you spend money, that doesn't mean the debt then staggers at the same way that you actually choose to take the funds. Because when you take the debt, it comes with a 20-year period of payoff. Okay? Which is different than the local option. I can go out for citizens, but you don't have to pay it back, and it's not tied to the ADM, where a local option is tied to where you have to pay it back at some degree. Anybody have questions on those two items? No?
Just really quick, the A necessary items, that includes the size and stuff, right?
Yes. Okay.
Students, any questions?
I know this is very overwhelming, and that's why I printed it off so you can take it and mull over it. So the next page and a half are things that Robin, and I think Robin's online, is basically a listing of capital projects that he's been putting together and what we think are things at each one of the individual sites. Now, there are things that on each one of these sites that may also be included in that capital list, right? But because there's 100 and some odd pages of that list, I didn't itemize them. I just put them in a total on that one summary. So with the high school, thinking of those things, now there's color coded that you got. The things in blue are the second to the last column on the right says energy grant. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I told you that the district was getting an energy grant. Portland, clean energy grant, and it's going to be about 5.5 million. So Robin and I met today. The things in blue that you see are pretty much things that we are guaranteed that we could get and pay on the energy grant. Now, there'll be things that come, now, obviously, those line items don't add up to $5.5 million. Right, so this list is live. It changes, like I gave you the list last week. Today, it changed. Every day it's changing because Robin's meeting with vendors, talking with people, negotiating and brokering, and those things will change. Or something breaks and that becomes more of a priority. So this is a live list of what can, could, or need to happen in the very near future or in the long-term future. Okay? But Robin so nicely put it together by each individual school. Right? And if he has a vendor, he put the vendor because he's actually met with them and he's got estimates on what it needs to be. Okay? So basically for the district sites alone, we're at basically rounded up to $27 million. Okay? If you take the rentals and obviously on a capital bond, this district would never be able to pass a capital bond and keep the rentals on tap. So, but we still have 3 rentals that we rent out to people. So we have to fix those. And there are things associated with the building, the roof, the outside structure, the boilers, the floors, we still have to maintain. Okay, so that's why some of those things are on the list. Any questions about that list? And Robin, I believe you're online. If there's some questions, he might be able to answer that I can't.
So the ones that you have for LSP are not, this is the money that. This is showing what we currently are spending, or we need.
Things we need to spend. I have another list of other things to show you about what we've spent so far. Okay, on rentals versus district. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
What's the HVAC, that I'm looking, I'm scouring the list, looking for those magic 4 letters. So I'm hoping that it would come from a grant, because we can tie it to climate. So what's the one for Russell? I see that, the multi-purpose room.
Robin, do you want to discuss that one if you're there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to read it.
Those are getting quotes, but I'm just curious.
It's a multi-purpose HVAC.
Oh, so this is just a replacement. Russell and Shaver both NPR, their units are down. So we're basically not looking at just a repair or one-for-ones, like for like switch. We're looking at a replacement for a better type of unit that doesn't break down as much. It's more easily fixed locally and likely would add AC. We're hoping that would be covered by the energy grant. So that's what we're working towards right now.
Okay. And that's the multi-purpose room, not the entire school.
No, I understand.
Okay.
A cool place. It's a cooling center, right? I'll take anything.
I didn't want to be very clear because I know what
We were there, you get it. I mean, we've seen that from our neighboring districts too, right? Classrooms get about 85 degrees. Well, no, we know the constraints though. I'm glad to see it on the list, and I do think it should come out of a grant from somewhere.
we hope.
Yeah.
So after this list, there is something that Robin put together. Thank you, Robin, so much for this, because I did not have this. Is a list of the Portland Clean Energy Grant Funds, what we think we possibly could do for them. And like I said, some of those items were yellow or orange or whatever, but this is a more extensive list where he's trying to figure out exactly, because Robin will be the contact person with the contract and working with that grant agency to ensure, because you have to make sure that it meets their guidelines. It's going to be energy efficient. It does this and that. And like every grant, it comes with its own compliance rules. So Robin will be the contact person and he'll work with me and Michael and possibly Andre to figure out exactly what is going to be the most expedient or most important project to do first. I know right now we have a lighting project for the LED upgrades. A portion of those right now, we're funding it from multiple sources of funds for the lighting project. But some of the, cost of the lighting project could be eligible, we're pretty sure it's gonna be eligible to be paid under this after a certain date, because that's obviously the start date of the grant. Anything we did before that is not eligible, but anything after that. So there are some expenses, but we don't know exactly how much those expenses are yet. Robin, any more that you can help me understand on these two wonderful pieces of stuff that you put together?
Well, it's fairly comprehensive. There's still a lot of stuff being added. Both line items and dollar amounts. So that's just it's a long process to get all of this stuff added, and then we'll have to sit down as groups to go over prioritizing and then getting approval from whatever's paying for it. Hopefully that answers your question.
Anybody have any more questions for Rob and I on those two items, the list of capital projects or the energy projects? Any questions?
I mean, maybe just to note about the pool boiler. I feel like I keep hearing about how stuff gets canceled because the pool is.
Yes, it's a high priority.
Yeah, so that just like, there's the cost of the work that's done, and we're like weighing that against like loss of rental income and loss of use. Right, like that, and I know that figures into the priority.
We haven't gotten any pool revenue in many months,
Oh, okay, all right.
so.
Question about the technology, was that?
I put an estimated number in there for technology. There's two things that we have to do for technology. One, we have very outdated Wi-Fi, right? And it's 2, 3, 4 years old, right? So I know that Andrew was working on an updated list for two things, to update that and to update our servers. Because our servers are extremely out of date, and that's the big things. And those are huge, the amount of cost that what those are going to be. So we have to figure out how to fund those. Obviously, those aren't going to be things that can be energy funded at this point. I know Andrew is trying, and maybe, because without those things, Robin wouldn't be able to do some of his operating stuff that he has. I know he's trying to convince Robin that it is energy. But those are placeholders at this point.
That's just $1 million for the whole district.
Yep. All right. So what I wanted to do with the next tab is talk about rental revenue. Because some of the things I said last board meeting is that we had an option to sell 2 of our buildings. And in that, we could sell them anything but 12 to 15 or sell $1 million per piece. Right? Or one of them. So what Robin and I have been doing since he got here and a little bit before I was doing before he got here was spending dollars trying to get these schools up to date. Because when I first arrived here, a lot of the maintenance on these buildings hadn't been done for years. So as we've renewed each one of these 3 major contracts, we've made the vendor or the leasee responsible for doing a lot of the stuff internally that they should be doing. But if it's part of the building, part of the boilers, part of the roof, we're doing those. But those are very high dollar items. But I wanted to show you what we get in revenue for each one of those buildings. We just renewed the Hellevue lease. It's a 10-year lease. It's basically a 39,000 square foot building. And over the 10-year lease, I get basically $5.5 million, right? And the way this lease is designed, over the first 3 years, we're really staggering up because my initial cost that I was getting in 22, 23, I was only getting $3 a square foot. Okay? So the way I agreed with the MESD CFO, Jonah, is over the first 3 years, I would stagger in a percentage of an increase and not 100%. Because believe it or not, even though I get rental revenue, I turn around and have to pay the expense in students' fees. Because if I have students at Helensview, which I do, I have 11 students at Helensview, that means I have to pay some of that back because it's in the rates. Okay, so over a 10-year period, but the first 3 years was a staggered period to get it up to the square footage rate. Not was done at a smaller, not is actually 2 separate leases. One of them being MESD and the other one being Mount Hood preschool program. Okay, so if you looked on the backside of not that basic annex arm of that building, that's the preschool. But the rest of the school is MESDs, where they have their most severe, their second most severe students that they have. Those are more mobile students, but at Thompson's is where they have the kids that are the most least mobile, high severe students that they have. Helensview is where they keep the high school kids that are in the alternative program. Overall, if you look in the yellow below, we basically just shy of 106,000 square feet. Over a 10-year period is about $10 million. But you'll notice we're not, the lease ends 6/30/27, but I don't know what I would get for those next 10 years. So I didn't build it into this proposal. Same with Thompson, it ends 6/30/29. I didn't build it in because as you see from Helensview, it ends at 6/30/33. So I didn't build in those extra years thinking of what they are. I only put exactly what lease we have. And then we have one classroom in Sacramento that's an FLS classroom that's being rented for basically $11,250 per year. That's probably the cheapest classroom you would ever buy for an FLS. But they also then buy our nutrition services, and for 2 of their buildings, they actually buy our nutrition services, and we get reimbursement through the feds. So, anybody have any questions? I thought it would be important because when we talked about the rentals, whether or not we sell them, whether or not we keep them, because one of the questions Robin and I have been having for a while is we've put a lot of money in, and you'll see off this next sheet, is we've spent over $1 million this year on 2 buildings. Okay? Do we want to sell them now that we've done a lot of the major work? So is that a great thing to do? So we have to think about those kind of things. So when you saw those extra things under that spreadsheet for Helensview, not whatever, those are things that we just did 2 roofs. We did 1 roof a year ago, so pretty much the roofs are almost done. What we have now is boilers and some flooring are the major things that we would have to do, and maybe some fire suppression systems or whatever. So would it be advantageous to sell something right now when we've already put a huge amount of money into it? Because then look at the revenue that we're losing. So I can't make those decisions for you. So I tried to put as much information in front of you so you could see where the revenue was. And basically, when we look at Knott and Thompson going forth, I will be raising on the square footage, basically raising those about 5 to 7% increase in the square footage cost. So if you wanted to project those, I'd be making probably another $9 to $10 million on those 2 sites. Okay? Because the average cost per square foot for the size of the building and on that land. Now realize this is only the cost or the money associated with the building. There is no money that we get for the land. The land comes carte blanche. So all that land of those 3 properties, which is huge, particularly Thompson, Helensview, not so much, Knott's only got a side lot, but those 2 properties are huge, the amount of land that comes with them. And we've not charged them on a square footage cost. The only thing that we charge them is on the square footage of the building. Okay? All right, next page, now is talking about where do we get the revenue and how much money are we getting and what pockets does it come in? In our Thompson Fund, and you guys in the budget revenue know that we have 21 funds. The fund that makes the money of rental revenues is Thompson. And when we want to do transfers, because we're short in the general fund, it typically comes from Thompson money. Right? Because we've had money in the Thompson Fund. So wanting to show each year how much money that we typically make and where I'm sitting in the fund balance, all the way on the right. So when I first got here, I was about first year, $3.8 million left in the fund. At the end of last year, I'm at $2.2 million. Okay? Last year, we spent, or in 23-24, I took $3 million in 22-23, and 23-24, I already have spent $1.5 million in Thompson. Because we had a lot of boiler fixes over the summer, and we did 2 roofs, about $1.2 million. Okay? Huge amount of expenses that are coming out of Thompson this year, because there were things that we couldn't put off anymore. All right, but on an average, we make about $4 million and that's, I did the average over 8 years and not taking 23-24 because it's only half a year. So basically, over an 8-year period, I spend about $3 million or $1 million, and I have about $4 million in revenue, and some of it's beginning fund balance, right? So at any one given time, I'm averaging at the end of the year to try to keep about $3 million. This year, I'm going to fail. Unless somebody magically wants to give me money, which I know that's not gonna happen. But when you think about the Thompson money, and when I talked about the things the last board meeting, the things to think about versus a local option versus a capital bond. Can we continue to limp along in capital expenses? Because what the district spends in operating costs for facilities is not. There's not money in the general fund for a lot of those things that we do in our buildings. The rental money that we make pays for some of those. And that when you look at that spreadsheet that breaks down where those expenses are, it says district employee costs, district other expenses. So when you look at those expenses, you can see the district is spending we're spending money out of that fund. And there's 2.75 FTE that's being paid out of the Thompson Fund and their custodial staff. But then there's also rental expenses. But over the years, you can see how much in rental expenses we're increasing. It's not cheap. We have to do things. Any questions? There's a lot of information, but what Michael wanted me to do is to bring to you. He did a PowerPoint that was a very high level. I always seem to get in the weeds. Okay, this is the weeds to understand capital bond versus a levy. There's pros and cons to both, right? One, I accrue debt, but we get this school to a place that it's not been since the 1960s, right? For the simple fact that we get some infrastructure to the elementaries, we get some safety and security in closing some of the 2 schools that have stuff that needs to be enclosed. Or you pay for some extra things and maybe get $2 to $3 million in a local option, but you're not subject to any debt. And this is where you say, the board can do this much of it, but then it has to chair it. And as PFA said, they really would like the local option. But there's also things about the bond that the PFA would really like, because there's lots of things in the building that they want. Right? Everybody in the elementary, every teacher in the elementary will say, I want AC. Okay, but I can't give you AC. Right, and I can't give some of the class expansions that we want and need at the high school. Right, so there has to be pros and cons.
Well, I appreciate the level of detail. Just because I feel like this will help us, guide us. To try to, make a decision, what we would like to move forward, of course, with talking, with, Mr. Ropes too. Lots of pros and cons, for sure. And so I think it's something that, we discussed, is a decision that we'll have to make sooner versus later, just because we are in a window of, we don't have a year. And so I know that one of the things that we discussed is maybe in our next meeting of December 11th, bringing it up and seeing if we would, want to move forward with a vote as to what.
Is there something that you would like from me that I could provide that you've not been given?
Did you already give me, Sheree, a sense? I know obviously like it's very hard to do it until you actually go further down the path, but of what kind of sale price we'd be looking at for those properties? And have we looked at selling like part of the land by Wheatley, but not the building, so that we can continue renting the buildings?
When we had the contractor that I paid money to analyze, it was in between 12 to 15 million per site.
Okay, and that's everything at the site, not what I said about splitting it up, okay. Well,
That's just Wheatley, right? Not within others buildings. It'll just be just one building. or something like
Well, I analyzed two, Owens View and Conway.
But one of the things I know that, in our last meeting was, I think a comment that was made, I think Elizabeth, you mentioned also, but what if we see growth in our district with, the Rossi land and, selling some of our.
Selling our rentals will not affect our ability to grow inside our academic area. Our schools that we currently have now, the elementary sites and the middle and high, have the ability to grow classroom design on their existing properties.
Okay.
We, at this point, if we even thought about using those 3 rentals, they would have to be tore down and rebuilt, because the age of the buildings and the design that they've gone through and basically gutted every one of the classrooms to make them designed for special needs students.
Okay.
So it wouldn't, the amount of money, it would cost us way more to do that than what they're doing. Now, I know MESD has reached out to Carol Samuels from Piper Jaffray to do a long-term debt to see what they would do to finance purchasing buildings. Because I had Michael reach out to the superintendent. So they're looking at it, but where they are on it, it's not final.
and did we look at, maybe this is, this might be just like, ooh, Elizabeth, that conversation never happened, it was in my sleep. But, like with the whole push for housing and the lack of housing and the land that we've got, like leasing the land to developers to build affordable housing, have we had that conversation?
We have, I mean, we could lease it to somebody similar to MESD, and that's some of the, I haven't gone down that route. I'm gonna have to try to find a different contractor, because Carol Samuels can't consult with me and do it with
conflict of
MESD.
interest, right.
Right, so, to figure out what our options is, which we give them a long-term lease.
Yeah.
And they can do and basically tear down the buildings and rebuild them, and we get so much of whatever, that's an option.
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert at that, and I'm really not. I know Robin and I have vaguely talked about it. So. And if Rossi does happen, right? Even if we get something today, it will be 3 years from now, at least. For any effective students, because it will take at least 2 years to get through the prep phase and another year just to maybe get the first series of the apartments up.
Yeah.
Now, he's gotten all the zoning, but it's past 3 years, so he would have to go back to them again. And I don't know where he is in that phase, and he's not kept me or Michael in the loop of where he is on that stage.
I think in terms, as we make a decision on doing either the levy or the bond, I mean, I see the benefit of our investment with the Thompson Fund. And I think it's something that's been really beneficial for us. I know that we have to maintain and upgrade those buildings, but I just look at our financial situation and I'm grateful for it because again, we've used the Thompson Fund if we needed to. So I think in terms of selling, I think that, I don't know, I kind of feel like we should hold on to that. And then look at either the levy is an option that's certainly necessary and important. But it's very specific to FTE and specific needs, you know,
Operating costs.
operating costs. But the other, I'm just thinking of like the conversation you had before you started the campaign for the middle school. Look how that has transformed our district and the environment for our students at middle school. And transform our community really, and that brought me here to the district. And so I'm thinking in terms of like, everything that could be brought to our district with that bond. Could really change and impact our kids for years to come. I mean, investments in all the schools, all the upgrades, I mean, that's a really important commitment and investment, and I think it's something that the community should get behind. Because we've got a great demonstration of how that middle school has really changed, been transformative for our districts, you know, having a beautiful building and having instructional space and all the things that came with it. And we clearly need to upgrade the rest of the districts, because it's just not upgraded. So I'm leaning towards that, so I know that's a whole conversation we need to have about, but that's kind of one of them. But I don't even know, I mean, we have it's November.
I think that, yeah, it's November, we would have to. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think, I'm not leaning either or right now, I just, you know, I think I need to process all the information that you gave me, and thank you, Robin, as well, appreciate that. To then be able to say I'm leaning towards this, because they both add significant value. The one thing that I keep on thinking about is like the high school saying, you know, smaller class sizes, but then we don't have the rooms to put smaller class sizes. All I can ever think about is me and my high school are smaller class sizes with both of them, right? And that's not something I want to see.
And athletics, we don't have some of the means to give our students that we need.
Exactly.
But with building those, we still have to provide operational
Right.
functions of the cost.
Yeah.
So with capital also comes operating needs.
Yeah.
So let's not forget that.
Students, any questions? Mr. Bill, keep on forgetting to ask.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's a question.
This is pretty straightforward. Looking forward to the conversation, hopefully in December. What options we can go with.
Yeah.
Leave behind support.
And then we'll need to rally the community. Because they're gonna be key to our success. Okay,
No questions, students?
Thank you for writing that out.
thank you. The next item on the agenda, we have teaching and learning and Mr. Bidlow.
Go ahead, go. I'm probably gonna leave the whole 25 minutes, we just really wanna cover two items. So the first item, we had our equity and committee meeting, so I'm just gonna give you an update on some of the work we've been doing. Last meeting was the first time we got together as a group, had a pretty large group, really focusing on 2 areas. We're still doing some work on the graduate profile. Me, Michael, and the, other administrators and also the students, we've been going out and getting feedback around the graduate profile. You can see some of the posters that are around. We went out to leadership a couple weeks ago, got their feedback around the graduate profile. And we'll be going out to the community, to different affinity groups, parent groups, to get their feedback around, discipline and also the graduate profile. So graduate profile was the first one we did. I don't know if you can see the chart, right? That's up there, that's it, with the different groups. So we had the top 10 list that was created from you all, we did it in the summer. The student board members, when we did it as well, and the admin team. So Michael created a top 10 list. And then the equity team had to go through that list and identify what were the, like their top 6. So if you can look on the chart paper there, group 1 came up with theirs, but then group 2 and 3 also had similar. So love, ability, I can't even. Ability to fail, last advice, activism, self-advocation, critical thinker, collaboration were the most popular ones that were traded across all 5 groups. But then curiosity, connection, and passion was the other ones that came. The whole group kind of decided, it was kind of unique to the group. We all worked separately, but came out with the same results. So we're looking forward to getting out to the community and see what their perspective are of what our graduate profile looks like. Another activity we did in the equity team, as we start to bring together the discipline committee team, it was part of the work we did with PFA around discipline. We broke it into groups again and looked at a couple different articles. So the article my group read was the teacher feeling unsupported with student behaviors. So really looking at ways we could strengthen student behavior, but then also what do we want discipline to look like if you reimagine here in Park Rose. So moving away from some of the compliance-based systems that we see in education to really leaning into some of these graduate profiles. So how do we allow student voice in discipline? How do we add that collaboration into discipline and create a system where our students can be successful, be heard, but then also that they don't have the same negative conversation around experience. Any questions around the equity team or equity committee work?
And I just had a question about the focus groups. So when again, like, is that gonna take place over the course of the year?
Yeah, so hopefully after the new year, we'll get out to the groups, working with Elevate, the team of network.
Okay.
Put together Black County Social and also spending.
Nice, okay. Yeah, keep me posted on those. It's been a while since we've done the socials, right? But-
Yeah. We did one last year. Yeah, we did one last year. So this one is gonna be really get their feedback around like discipline. I think this is gonna be a real interesting opportunity to go out there with the families, just because everybody had a different K-12 experience with discipline. So, and we know a lot of our Hispanic families and Black African families have been marginalized in the system. Their experience and see how we create, how we approach this.
And how many people is in front of the equity?
We have 16, I think there's 4 groups of 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate the conversation about discipline and just reflect on how it feels like it's a system issue, that it really, there are big impacts in classrooms if the teacher's not able to be connected with students and students hijack it, right? And so how to set the right tone, positive tone, and yet hold accountability for the classroom as a community. Like everyone's contributing to that community. So we're not singling out individuals, but we're also not letting that teacher's ability to hold that community, that classroom be taken away.
For sure.
Which I'm not a teacher, so I can only imagine how hard the struggle is, but I hear from my own experience and from parents that it's a real struggle. To support teachers in a positive way that allows that the whole of the community to really flourish. So I appreciate that you're having these conversations. Thank you for bringing in those specific focus groups. So I also appreciate that too. Just,
you know, when you have, parents and also, just, you know, students are attending the schools and stuff, and some of the key things that, I hear is, that balance of discipline, right? And also, how, like you said, some students can hijack the whole, class at that time, and you find that balance, and then, so then what happens is the kids that, are there that wanna learn, and, you know, school's very important to them. Not saying school's not important to all students, but the level of importance, then they feel like they're not getting what they need, from that class, and because the focus has been so much on trying to rally it back up and get it back on track. You know, and unfortunately, like even my experience recently is like, you know, some of the parents are like, well, you know, my kid is not getting what they need from that class, so, you know, then having those conversations, so they have to look elsewhere, but I let them know, like, it's not just a Park Rose thing, it's all schools are dealing with that, all districts are dealing with that, so I like that, you're gonna have those focus groups to be able to see like, you know, what is needed, and to be able to also support.
And one thing we're also
Students.
trying to throw around too is just getting feedback around, you know, our youngest population, so our kindergarten, how do we structure their transition as well? So that's gonna be another project that myself and Michael will be working on this spring too. So how do we learn from some of the past experience with kindergarten, just rushing right into the school, our school system? But is there a way to ease them in gradually and build upon some of the things that the preschool has implemented where kids found success? So those are some of the three things projects we have going over after the new year. Any questions from the students? So the next one is really looking at social studies. So looking at social studies, so this has to do with some of the graduation requirements, some of the language that we have in our current graduation requirements in Park Rose. And just, we did some work in the past with the previous board around just updating the language around graduation requirements, just so then that it makes it more clear and concise to the students, but then also allows for some more flexibility moving forward, especially as we try to diversify our course offering of the high school. So just some recent history. So in 2016, the board adopted the new diploma options. So under the new system, students can either earn a standard diploma or honors diploma. So back in 2016, when I first got here, Park Rose diploma was actually, you needed 26 credits to graduate. So instead of 6 elective credits, you needed 8 elective credits. And that was hard for students to do, especially with a 7-period schedule over 4 years to get to that 26 credit, and also with the reduction of staff. There was not a lot of elective offerings for students to get those extra electives. So we ended up reducing the credits for that diploma to 24, but then on the flip side, we introduced the honors diploma, which required students to have 26 credits. It didn't have to be in the area of electives, it can be in the area of CTE, or even take an additional language arts credit, or even elective credits, but then also with a minimum of 3.5 GPA. So we had a standard diploma that went back down, was equivalent to the state diploma at 24 credits. And then we introduced the honors diploma, 26 credits at 3.75. So that helped us get aligned more with the state around the credits needed for graduation. And then in 2017, we looked at the transcript again, we looked at the graduation requirements set for Park Rose. And so instead of having the requirement of physical science, biology, and just in the third year of science, so students had to have physical science, biology, and the third year of science in order to graduate. We changed the language so we just had 3 credits of science. So that allows students a little bit more flexibility around what science they wanted to take and create their own path rather than rather than designating a single path for students to get to their 3 credits of science in order to graduate. So that's just a brief history of some of the changes that were made to kind of, one, get us aligned with the state, but 2, allow more flexibility for student interests. Because even in 2017, we offered new science courses. We offered marine biology, ecology, the mass distinctions. We had forensic science back then, so our classes that students wanted, more variety, and it allowed them to have some flexibility on making those 3 science credit requirements. And this is just a brief history of what our transcript used to look like. So back in 14-15, you can see science, all the sciences are kind of singled out. Biology was its own line item. Global studies its own line item. Physical science is its own line item. US history is its own line item. So it was hard for students to kind of understand the transcript and understand like, okay, I need biology, but is it science, or how does it correlate into me graduating? And then we were able to reduce it. In 2016-17, we were able to make some changes to the transcript so students could have some more clear and concise information. And then if you can see from the first one in 14-15, it was 26 credits for the required. 2016-17, you can see for required now it was 24. And in 2017-18, we made the science changes. You can see now that biology, physical science is all gone in 2017-18, but now it's just 3 science credits. And then during the pandemic in 19-20, we followed the Oregon graduation standards. And so you see science is now just science, and social studies is just 3 credits of social studies. So before, on our transcripts and our graduation requirements require kids to take global studies, US history, government, and econ. But when we followed the Oregon standards graduation requirements in 2020, it just made it clear in the same transcript and graduation requirements for students to follow. So this is just a brief, this is just a rundown of our current graduations requirements. So we're in line with the state, and if we're spending more time focused on the social studies standard. Go ahead. You're good.
Good.
Yeah. So our recommendation for social studies is to change some of the language that's in our policy right now. So currently, our sequence is global studies, US history, government, econ. And we want to move the change to be more aligned with the state. So saying 3 credits, but they must include a 0.5 credit of civics, which students are already getting right now in their Gov Econ class. And this will eliminate some of the confusion on the transcript. So rather than have global studies, US history as separate line items, it would just say social studies 3 credits for students. We would still offer, obviously, majority of our kids, 95% of our kids would still take the sequence of global study US history. But this gives us alignment with the state, cleans up the transcripts, supports students with their 4-year plan, but also gives us the opportunity to, if we ever go to introducing new courses like ethnic studies for all, because right now our current requirements does not have ethnic studies in there. It says global studies are US, but this gives us more flexibility to offer more different course offerings in the future. And we've seen the increase in student advocacy for those type of classes, especially around ethnic studies. And now, in the times that we're living in right now, a lot of kids are interested in current events. So how do we fold those into social studies to make sure that we meet these standards in the different priority events? And what does this mean for our students at Park Rose? I know Molly's gonna come in the next month or so to talk about the graduation rates. But it just means our students will have a more consistent path to graduation and continue to see the graduation rate in Park Rose increase. And also will get students, more aligned to their passion when they leave high school, whether that's be college or career.
Any questions?
Wasn't there something that happened that is on option to be added the last, so was it? There was so much like.
Yeah, it's, so it's just language, so so it's ethnic studies, so there needs to be, ethnic studies, Holocaust and genocide, it would be taught within those 3 years.
Within those 3 years,
Yeah.
okay,
In tribal history, art history, shared history.
okay.
Which I've been tracking that for a while, that's been like long, I feel like having an exam, like I think the first bill on it was maybe even, I don't know, 8 years ago. But yeah, so I have this gut reaction of like, oh my God, you need to know your history and your government, and then I think about when I took history and government. And how what I really wanted was like civic participation, advocacy, how you actually get affect social change. Rather than like, how a bill becomes law. I mean, I guess you do need to know about the 3 branches of government. Sorry.
But that's, I mean, that's.
Mr. Meltzer, your job is so
Our
important.
kids are asking the same question, right?
Like,
They're
what's
asking
relevant? That's like-
The relevant, the application of that piece, right? It's like a conversation.
Yeah, so, well, and I think, and what I've heard from Mr. Meltzer, is a real willingness to really engage with students in shaping that curriculum. And so I think it's not just about responding to student advocacy. I think, just from what I've heard from our PFA rep is that teachers are also really interested in having flexibility in the curriculum to be responding to current events and current needs of our students and not be as constrained. Like, obviously, we want to prepare children. Of course, I mean, that's what we're here for, but we're also recognizing that what that looks like is very different from what it used to look like. And that it's constantly changing and evolving. So giving that flexibility to our teachers is important to me. Something. Student? Questions, comments?
I also agree with what we're looking for is like assistance in our own way. I feel like especially our board, we just want like, we want you guys to support us and show us methods of how we can be heard and how we can share our opinions. And so like us being a board on the board is a huge step, but at the same time, not everybody can be on the board. So I feel like those classes can really support students that didn't get the opportunity that we did.
And there's that tension and wrestling between like knowing enough about the system as it is, participate in it, but not giving it so much energy that it takes away your connection to grassroots and your own passion for what you want to have. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gillum. All right. Well, the next item on the agenda is for Board of Education. Our first item is our student representatives. Welcome, and all right.
Alrighty. So we as representatives of Park Rose High School are against suppression in all forms. The Park Rose leadership class has had multiple in-depth conversations about what is going on in the world. The sentiment shared throughout all those discussions was the apparent need for a ceasefire in Palestine. We want to make it clear that the burden of this genocide is not on any Jewish students nor any of our Muslim students. The critique is solely on the Israeli government. More journalists have been killed in Gaza since October 7th than any other world conflicts since 1992. 14,000 people are dead, 6,000 being children. White phosphorus has been dropped, internet access cut off, homes eviscerated, hospitals bombed, and basic supplies stopped. We are actively witnessing a humanitarian crisis. As the most diverse high school in Oregon, we have a unique responsibility to protect our communities. I can guarantee you that silence is not the answer. A ceasefire is backed by 120 members of the United Nations Security Council, 17 UN agencies, the UN General Secretary, the World Health Organization, the World Food Program, the International Committee of Refugees, the LA Times, the Pope, as well as many high-ranking members of the European Union. I urge the Park Rose Board of Education to call for an immediate ceasefire. Thank you. That's about it on the Palestine front. Otherwise, we have had a lot of discussions in our leadership class about that specifically. Otherwise, we have somewhat what's it called? The semester change coming up. We were talking to, I've been talking to Mr. Kiza, doing a check-in for our freshmen for the what's it called? The link crew, yeah. So having check-in for the link crew to make sure that all the freshmen are adapting into high school correctly and making sure they're okay. That's great.
Elizabeth.
Comments, questions?
Something. No, I hear your strong statement and your strong words. Last time when we met, I asked you about Jewish students in leadership and conversations that you had with those students that some of those topics. I'm just curious about kind of what's emerged in the last couple of weeks.
Not a lot on that front. I don't think that we have any Jewish students in leadership. We have had our librarian, like I said last time, was a Jewish woman. She put her input into the situation and vocalized it for the leadership class and the struggle. Otherwise, there hasn't been a lot of progress on involving Jewish students in the conversation. And that's mostly out of the struggle of having many Jewish students. I don't really get in contact with a lot besides posting.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting and difficult process, but yeah, as of right now, we've had conversations that Parkrose is the most diverse high school in Oregon, and coming with that has a lot of responsibilities to protect the communities within it. And of course, we do have Jewish students in our district, in the same way we do have Muslim students in our district, and it's very important to protect those people. I think that in our statement, eventually when we release one, because it's gonna happen eventually, I think we need to be very clear that the burden of this war isn't to be put onto any of our Israeli or Jewish students, and in the same way any of our Palestinian or Muslim students. That's very important, but to kind of derail that conversation from happening out of fear of a anti-Semitic or Islamophobic comment or something being made, that can't be the wall in our way. We still have to work past that, even if people may be uncomfortable with the result. I think that as our responsibility, it needs to be making sure that all the communities are safe while still taking up for what's right.
She said our librarian that has posted flyers around that are just saying that if you are able to reach out and want to learn more, you need someone to talk to about this topic. And we are in contact with her about that information, but as I heard from I don't think any of our Jewish students have reached out or like talked about it. So
Yeah, I be very open and I share a lot because I'm close to my community, but I'm Jewish. And my family has been talking about it a lot because we usually don't, but I didn't even really know about it, like what was happening until our leadership class brought it up. And at first I was thinking like, I don't know, maybe we should go the safe route and like not talk about it. But then after I did do my research and seeing like all the children that are getting murdered, like I had to do something about it. And so like I remember earlier today, I was like, I don't know, how it's gonna go, but I think it's important and that we have to do something. And we can't just, we know it's happening, so I feel like we have to do something about it. We can't just keep going like acting like nothing happened. And I don't know how we're gonna figure out what we're gonna do, but we have to do something.
I agree with Jackie, like before every meeting, we talk about the land agreement and the atrocities that happen kind of before our time, and we just kind of seeing those same atrocities happen, but this time happening across the world, and I feel like we just gotta backward words, and we're not just saying this land agreement to say it before every meeting, but we actually mean what we say. And by showing that we mean what we say, I think we have to advocate for people who can't advocate for themselves.
And I think our first step really to like get the word out about this whole situation is to start with like government classes and history classes, like having them take some time out of the day, maybe not make it a requirement, but just like
sending out an email and asking them to please like provide that information, because I know a lot of students who are just like clueless about the situation. They just see like, protests for like Palestine and stuff like that, oh, we're boycotting Starbucks and McDonald's and like some other stuff, and they just like follow that route, but they're not educated, and I think the education part is really, really important, so that we don't, hold any biases and stuff like that. I think it's important to just like educate, but at the same time, it has to be completely non-biased. We need to like, just because people are boycotting, I want people to be like, okay, I'm boycotting for the right reason, and I want students to be able to make their own opinions on this issue and come up with, like something that follows their own morals and what they believe in, instead of us pushing them to a certain direction.
On another point, we wanna make sure that our statement, even if it is supporting one entity or another, it is protecting our students. As a school board, we need to be protecting our students. And we need to be stern against any Islamophobia or anti-Semitism that might transpire from this. That's not the goal. The goal is to have people stop getting involved. People to not have white phosphorus about it. Like that's an insane thing to kind of even say, but it's something that needs to stop. And I think that because of our unique situation and being the most diverse high school and one of the most diverse districts in Oregon, that's a unique responsibility that we have. In other school districts, I've seen that there's been some backlash from other posts that have been made or other statements that have been made. And I think that our main responsibility right now is to A, protect our students, and B, protect the people that themselves, like Sarah said. It's an atrocity. It's a genuine atrocity that's happening. And just because there's oppressed people behind each side of it, it doesn't mean that we can just drop our hands down. It's almost that we need to kind of fight for it more, because there's so much information coming from both ways, you know. And as a school district, we have the privilege of information, being able to spread information, being able to affect a community very quickly. I mean, we're a local government, but it's government still. We're still affecting change. That's the goal of the students are right now. So.
Yeah, I have some comments. I appreciate the statement. I appreciate the advocacy. As someone who's been on the board for a while, I think it's a very delicate balance when you speak as a Board of Education. You know, we have a role here that is we have a fiduciary responsibility to the district. We supervise and support our superintendent. We pass policy. You know, we are involved in community engagement. We balance a budget. And when things do disproportionately impact our community, we do speak out. And we speak out in a way that it's vetted. It's something that it has to come from all of us. It has to be centered in community, to be centered on the impact of our students. And I think that there's some really opportunities to have discussion. What I've heard one side of the conversation. I've heard, I don't know students of this faith, and that concerns me because we are a very diverse district. So I'm not interested, or I'm not comfortable with making a statement when we don't know who's in our community, who's being impacted, how they feel about it. I think us, in terms of the Board of Education and being your mentors, we want to be sure that your message is, it needs to be appropriate, and it needs to be relevant to our community. In my time as an elected local school board member, I haven't spoken about things happening in other communities outside of Maya. Because I feel like our focus and our job here is really to speak to what impacts our students. Whenever we had the death of George Floyd, and how that disproportionately impacted our community, you know, we spoke directly about that. We spoke about how that impacted just within these walls of our community. And we talked specifically to families and students and boys that could be impacted. And I think there's an appropriate way to address this, but I think what I'm hearing is there needs to be more conversation. There needs to be more education. I can see the five of you maybe having a forum and discussing this with other students, doing it in a way that's collaborative and it's thoughtful. I could see that as being really transformative. I think a statement could, and I would hate to see a statement being misunderstood. and misguided, and I would certainly want, I would want the full board to be, on board with that, and particularly, Michael as well. And I don't think we're there yet. I think that there's an opportunity first. I think what needs to happen first before we make a statement is to have a conversation. And to have those communities that are represented at the table talking together. I see an opportunity to have a discussion, to create a support system, because we don't know what's happening in other people's homes. My sister is married to a Jewish man, she's Jewish now as well, so this has impacted my family as well, and I have to be really sensitive to that. And so I think that there's a way to approach the support and speak. I don't know if a statement is really appropriate for this board, for the Board of Education, but I certainly think we can support some other way of sharing a message. Taking a stand on what we feel is a travesty, what I see as a travesty happening. But I think there's a way that we can approach it. I think there's a way we can have that conversation in our community and support our community. So that's just some of my thoughts.
I've actually been thinking about this since our last meeting, when, you came to us and gave your statement to, and speaking about, the leadership class. And it's been heavy in my heart. Reasoning, the things that I think about is like, yes, like, of course, like, we don't want to come off that we don't care that what's happening, because I truly do care of what's happening, and, like what Sonia said and Elizabeth said, like, my areas for me is, is that, yeah, we are the most diverse district. And with that comes with a lot of responsibility too as well. And I don't feel like, again, you said more conversation needs to happen because, whether they're the, librarians putting stuff up and, I think it's it's a difficult conversations. These are like difficult conversations in your households. Difficult, some people are probably still processing of what's going on. And the hard part about it for me as well is that it's not just going on in that part of the world. There's like genocide happening in all these other parts of the world, but no one's talking about it, right? So it's just, it's a hard thing for me just because I also like, feel that, feel for the children, feel for the parents, feel for the communities and all that. So yeah, it does weigh heavy in my heart. But also at the same time, like you said, we do have a responsibility to ensure that if we were to put a statement out, is that everyone feels safe, right? And not just be, oh, we're gonna put a statement out for this, and not worry about everyone else it's gonna affect, what's gonna come from it, And of course, like, does that mean we stay silent? I don't know, right? I don't know. Do I feel like more discussion needs to happen? Yes. Does the discussion, what that looks like, that's something we have to talk to Mr. Holtz about. What does that look like does that look like in the classroom? Is it a forum? But I think that everyone should be able to have a space where their voice is heard as well. And then from there, having those type of discussions would feel more comfortable, making a statement if we were to make a statement. But I just feel like I'm not in a position that I feel educated enough myself, to be able to say, I take this, and again, the hard part for me as well is that there's so much other things also that are happening just in the same time that this is happening that is not being addressed by our government, by our, everyone, and so I 100% is, like I said, it's been weighing heavy on my heart, and but I feel like more conversation needs to happen, and I don't know what that platform looks like. It's something that do we take it to the schools? Is it in the classrooms? Is it, who leads that? Who leads that? But also I don't, I want you guys to have the space of being able to come and talk to us about it and how you feel about it and how the leadership class feels about it. But just like we mentioned that you get the space of coming in front of us to talk to us and tell us your voice. And not all students get that opportunity. And I feel like all students should be able to get an opportunity to voice how they feel, or also, like myself, get educated as to what is truly happening, why is it happening? I know what's happening, but the why of why it's happening, the history of it. And not just the history of that, but the history of what's happening, in the Congo, all this stuff is coming our way. And then also like alone of like, what are the things that are affecting our community within our walls as well, right? Because we're dealing with some of that stuff with our own community. All that to say is that I don't want, all of you to come here and feel like, oh, they're not willing to do this, because the space is for you to be able to come and speak your voice, say what you need to say, but also we have, as a board, we have a responsibility also, not just, for within this, it's all our students and making sure that if we were to put something out, what does that look like for the resources that of what, who it's really gonna affect? And what if they deal with this? Are we gonna be able to say, we're gonna make this statement and be able to say, and but here are resources in case something happens, right? The safety of our students as well.
Which I think Mr. Lopes has done a good job of when we've had events, he always kind of lifts up resources. I think he did in his last letter. But I don't know that we have to talk about every genocide that's happening across the globe to be able to talk about genocide. And I don't feel like there's two sides to death, right? To war. And so I'm wondering about, and I'm just throwing out brainstorming, because I hear like the thing about a written statement is like, like people read it and they can use it, right? They can use the words and make those words read meaning into those words. But I would feel really good about us, we take that moment when we do that land acknowledgement. I would feel good about us taking time at a meeting to be kind of in mindful silence, in a place of mourning of all the deaths, because I don't feel like there's two sides to that. I feel like you're saying about the children, like we can mourn that and grieve that and not have to understand all of the complexities of conflict in the Middle East. So that's just my thought on it. I also kind of hold that feeling that if you don't say anything, like even if you don't pause for a moment to mourn, that it feels like you don't care and that you're silent. And you can't say, no, I really do care, like actions show it. So, yeah, so I'm just thinking about that. It is something that I think, like, as you're our chair and Mr. Lopes would be good for you guys to talk about, but it is heavy on me, and I do think maybe that could be something. Maybe that we have that moment of silence, or we have something that we say about how we're mourning what's happening and how much it's breaking our hearts. Yeah, and that so that feels like there's something that we're doing. I don't know, maybe that's a possibility. So then thank you for speaking so boldly.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I'm glad that you have the platform to do it, The next things would be that I get together with Mr. Lopes, and discuss and figure out like what's the next steps, and I know they can meet with the students as well. And so, and setting it up from there, so that's the next thing. Anything, any other questions?
Just like going off of your guys' discussion, I just would love if like, not even just the high school, but kind of the community can come together and share our thoughts and like what we believe on these topics. Like, I'm Sudanese and there is a genocide happening in Sudan. And like, just like the thought of like people understanding what's happening and like being heard is enough to make me feel like better and feel like I'm not moving burden on. And I would like that for all the students to feel like they're normal and this is a community and we, you know, we welcome everyone.
I think when we moved to the block schedule, like Wednesdays was that day, like hopefully that was some of the vision of going to the block schedule, allowing that flex time on Wednesdays to have some of these conversations. So students aren't missing class, right? But there is a space and opportunities for students to come together and talk about these current events, express how they're feeling too. So I think that could be some of the conversation too. How do we set up these Wednesdays, flex times for people to come together to have some of the conversations about what's going on in the world, but then also to get input from folks from different sides of this, and people share their stories in an atmosphere that is safe. And build that community too, rather than we talk a lot about what's going on exterior at Park Rose, but having these conversations all together in Park Rose will only make our community stronger, hearing from the folks that may be impacted. How can we support them as they walk through our campuses, feeling the way they do?
Again, thank you. You know, this is why student reps are important on board. And, you know, as a chair, like it is, the next steps is just getting together with Mr. Holmes so he can talk. The next thing on the agenda is written reports. Sonia provided her written report about the CUBE conference that happened in Chicago. I don't know if anyone had any questions or you want to just give a quick
I'll just do it
overview.
really quick. So this is I think I mentioned it before, it's a, Council of Urban Boards of Education. We have an annual convention every year, this time it was in Chicago, in September. And it really is an experience, more than it's a conference, but it's really an experience. You get these lively, amazing, colorful speakers that share about, things happen, trends in urban education. A lot of them are very, inspirational. Then we had amazing student talent. And I can't say enough about the two keynote speakers were amazing. And I shared some screens of their presentation about inequities in life and education and how that looks. And then we had Ice-T, who was like a legend in television and music, and I got to meet him, which is very cool. Got a photo off with him. But again, it was just, this is an amazing opportunity to be around other urban board members around the country, you know, connecting, sharing with our experiences and learning from them. It was just, I'm always so happy. This is my second time going to this conference. And it was just, it's really a phenomenal experience. I have like pages of notes from the session that I went to. This is just a brief overview of a few of the sessions I attended, but it was a packed 4 days of activity. I went the day early, I think, so. And we had an opportunity to spend some time in Chicago. We did a river tour, and there's like a river tour where you can see all the history of all the buildings in downtown Chicago. That was like an hour. That was amazing. Went to Second City Theater. That's where a lot of people from Saturday Night Live have started their careers there. So we went there for a night out of comedy. It was really fun. Had some deep dish pizza. So it was really fun. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions about any of the stuff or speakers or anything.
And just questions now. Thank you so much for any questions. I don't have any questions. Just he went to my
That's right.
he did. He went to Fresh Out.
That's right. Yeah, he's really cool.
Okay.
Right.
The other thing on the agenda is the LPC committee. I'm really not on there yet.
No, but
Officially,
we get
there hasn't been anything.
we usually meet at the November.
Yeah, there wasn't any meeting there, so nothing to share there. Legislative updates, we had our advocacy date pool that, you know, different dates.
Yeah, thank you for students, I saw.
Yeah, I haven't seen the latest. Oh. That's all right. Please go ahead. So, if you haven't voted, go vote.
Oh, you're gonna show it.
No. And then,
let's look at
so I
this.
gave my
Yeah.
OSBA fall convention report, pretty, just all the ones that I attended, you know, just the conference really just left me with the impact of like having student voice on your boards. I'm very proud of Park Rose of like, you know, when we go to this place, they talk about Park Rose a lot, you know, and in positive ways and, you know, your little district, you know, the collaboration that you have and, not just, you know, within our board, but also collaboration with unions and students and then it was nice to see our students being part of the panel. And then we also had our previous student rep, Kennedy, also part of one of the panels. So, so just like for me, it's great to hear all the great things that they talk about from our school. And then also we just have a great superintendent. And then, you know, like Sonia, I have to keep up with Sonia with pictures.
So much.
So here it was, when they were giving on the panel, and then we took a picture at the end. Picture of Kennedy all the way from the back. I'm usually a person that sits in the back. And a great picture there. But no, it was great. It was my first time attending the fall conference. Lots more people than the same one, but it was good to be. I know we had a principal for the day. I know that you did that, so we'll wait for a recap for in the next,
We'll do that next time.
the next one. We do have our budget committee questions for 23-24. And are we asking if we're changing any of the
Yeah.
questions?
I think we just went through that.
Yeah, I think we're good. I don't feel like we need to change anything on that. And then, the next thing was us sharing our professional development goals. I know we talked about sharing it at this meeting.
Yes.
We don't have Paul here, but I don't know if you need more time.
I can give like one sentence.
Okay.
If we want, just, I know December's meeting is gonna be full.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just thinking about like the board engagement. And thinking how it often is like negative when there's like some sort of fracture in the community. We might be seeing that in our neighborhood, to the west. And so I'm just curious, I started thinking about like, what are different ways that we engage our public? We've talked about that before, like people don't know what the school board does. And so at this point, just feeling like maybe I want to just do some like research. I know OSBA, I just started looking, like there was an article with a whole bunch of ideas. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking for me.
How do you engage the community?
How to engage the community and also looking ahead to like levy or bond, you know, so like, how do we connect with people? Maybe beyond knocking on doors. Yeah, there's some creative ways.
Conference coming up.
Oh,
Bonds balance and something. I can't remember the last part of it, but it's coming, it's every other year.
right, so, yeah, so just thinking about how we. Yeah, so I was gonna take that on for myself with the rest of this year, is to kind of do some research about, and maybe there are some people that are really engaging well in their districts. That's what I got.
Sorry.
Oh, professional development, for me, I have like 1 million books I haven't read, including the one from Ice-T. So I think my focus is gonna be reading a book, just trying to get through a book a month. And maybe sharing my reflections on that, or, I don't know.
My professional development goal is, focusing on just being a chair. It's my first time doing it. And then also, now that we have another board vacancy, how can I better give them the tools and, you know, the knowledge and being a mentor to them. I shared it with Andrea, but I started this Excel spreadsheet of dates and also for myself, so I can keep, you know, but like, what are key important things? What are key important dates? You know, who are our principals and our assistant principals? Who are, you know, just different areas that I feel like, what did I need when I was a first, you know, a board member? And then also like basic policies. So that's, you know, just developing in my chair role and then also helping our new board members, new board member. And Paul as well, how do I mentor them and give them the tools that they need to become better board members? And then the next thing is our board vacancy. I don't know, last time I checked in with you, there was no one.
No applicants.
No applicants
so far.
Really, it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, so we can repost, I mean, I can,
We need to
resend
repost
it.
on our social media.
Yeah, but you may need to consider moving the, you know,
The date, December
extending
11th to
the application
January.
timeline, yeah.
Or you reach out to the budget committee, 9 of them, and ask anybody on the budget committee if they want to.
Well, that happens a lot of times. Fine.
They transition from one to the other.
Yeah, we should probably.
Extend to January.
I would, it's
Yeah.
the holidays and stuff. Now it's all.
What's our next January?
So the January, interview at the January business meeting, is that what you're thinking?
I like the deadline to apply.
Oh, the debt,
Well, deadline to apply then will be into December. And then we would have the interviews in January.
Okay.
so the business meeting in January is the 22nd. The work session is the 8th.
Doing the work session, the interview, right?
Well, this one was, December 11th is a business / work session because it's our only meeting in December. And I think last time we interviewed during our business meeting, our work session.
Okay.
Yeah, it's such a tricky thing, because on the one hand, the business meeting, you have a bunch of, you usually have in that meeting much formal reports and like things you have to get through. So then a work session seems easier, but it also just depends on what other things are on deck for that work session that you need like concentrated focus time to get done.
So we're okay extending and probably to the end of the December. And then I can talk with Mr. Lopes as to when we
Yeah,
do the interviews, is that okay?
Yeah.
And then maybe a December 11th meeting, we can have a date, we can have a discussion as to, is it okay if we have it on this date?
Yeah, because I don't have a strong feeling either. I would look to Mr. Lips and what else we have to do doing in January. That's my own personal.
So we're posting with an unsure due date, so we're reposting the date to open through,
Are we reposting or just extending?
or extending the deadline to. do we
Extending
have
the
a date?
deadline,
I mean, it sounds like we don't really know. the
Well, it's weird because you
date.
guys are gonna be off.
Like winter break,
Friday the
yeah.
15th is our last day,
Okay,
December 15th.
December 15th, yeah.
so you wanna.
And what did we have it, when was the last time that last date that they can apply?
December 5th currently.
Oh.
But like you could extend to. I mean, the work session is the 8th. You could have
So I
the,
guess we could make a decision, we should just have it in our business meeting of January 22nd.
We have the board appreciation dinner too, right? That's maybe the one.
That's the 26th.
So it would be December 8th, I mean, January
Dinner,
8th, that we would do the interviews.
we have to, because of.
Okay, there we go, made a decision.
Well, so then what's the deadline? You're needing to Andrew the deadline. Do you
so
want
I
to
guess it would
be
have
the
to
first,
be
The second? Does that give you enough time?
the 4th, we could, I mean,
That doesn't give you enough time.
well, it's just gonna be in a spreadsheet, their answers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so.
But
So-
but don't you have to confirm that they actually live?
Oh, right,
Yeah,
yes.
there's a little bit of legwork you have to do. So what if
Yeah.
you made it like January 2nd? When are you?
I mean, that's a day after winter break. Like, are parents gonna even be on board? Like,
That's true. That's true.
you know, like. Even though attempting to apply during winter break?
I mean, I mean, some parents are not even off during winter break,
Sure.
they're still working. The students are off, but.
You're good to raise. So you wanna do the 4th?
I mean,
Just set aside some time on your calendar. for-
yeah, we could do the
validate.
4th. And then if they are, and then I could confirm their status on the 5th. And hopefully get an answer in one day.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's do that, let's do
and
it.
if we don't, then we just.
And then still checking with Mr. Lips, because I know we have that dinner on the 22nd. Yeah, and see what he.
All right, so the next thing is reading of public comments, and we actually do have one public comment. Let's hear, do I need to follow something? Maybe.
We could just read it.
All right,
And then we won't respond to it, we'll just.
So, entered on today, at military time, 1827, 627. By Alonso Melendez, do I need to give the?
No, just,
Okay, so this, the relation to the district is, they're a student's parent. The main topic is student safety and belonging. Here, so the comment, shared is, it's been brought to my attention that my daughter and some of her friends, all students at Park Rose, feel obligated and even bullied into supporting a position on the Palestine-Israel conflict. The popular view seems to support Palestine without real disclosure over the conflict. My question is, how do you, school administration and faculty, reconcile equity and inclusion when your actions are literally creating an unsafe environment for students who sit on the other side of the popular position? It's gotten to a point that some of the rhetoric is bordering on anti-Semitism. What are you doing to foster a safe environment for students who are being marginalized and made to fear speaking up? And that's the ending of the comment, and that's the only public comment that we have.
and I will make sure the superintendent gets a copy of this since he's absent tonight.
Okay. And it's something that I can discuss with him during our next meeting that. Okay. With that, do we have any future agenda items? The only thing I have for future agenda item is adding, having a discussion about, for vice chair. And then also superintendent, evaluation. For us to, it's gonna be here before we know it, so just making sure we give them a date and then the process we're gonna follow, right? Okay.
No correspondence.
Correspondence, right. And upcoming board meeting, is next, will be December 11th, Monday, December 11th, and then, January 8th. Upcoming events, we have winter break from December 18th to January 2nd. Save the date for board appreciation dinner, January 10th, 22nd at 5:45. And with that, I adjourn the meeting at 9:18. Thank you, everyone.